50 strangers stand perfectly still in a pitch-black room, frozen like statues. A single beam of light slices through the darkness as a young woman suddenly gasps awake. Confused, she calls out for help, but her voice disappears into the void. She takes one cautious step. A deafening buzzer explodes through the room. She looks down to find herself standing on a glowing red circle. Panicked, she steps backward, but the alarm screams even louder. She reaches toward the soldier standing beside her. The warning blares again. A strange metal ring around her wrist suddenly begins to glow. Before she can move again, a man's voice echoes through the darkness. Don't. I don't know what's happening, but whatever put us here clearly doesn't want us moving. Before anyone can react, another woman jolts awake in pure panic. She stumbles off her circle without thinking. A blinding bolt of electricity erupts from the center of the room. She vanishes in an instant. The lights snap on. Every remaining stranger wakes at once, only for one elderly man to collapse dead before anyone can even process what they've just witnessed. The soldier immediately shouts for everyone to stay exactly where they are. Nobody moves. Nobody touches anyone. Then the room begins beeping. Slowly, rhythmically, the dead man's body slides across the floor as though pulled by an invisible force. His glowing wristband fades to black. The beeping grows faster. The electrical hum rises. The man giving orders opens his mouth to speak again. Another bolt tears straight through him. Silence. Panic erupts. People scream, cry, and beg for answers. But one sharp-eyed man wearing a hat notices something strange. A tiny beam of light is drifting across the floor, following the movement of his hand. He experiments. The glowing pointer glides from person to person. When it stops in front of a random woman, another blast instantly kills her. The room freezes. Everyone tries moving their hands. Every wristband controls its own pointer. They aren't prisoners waiting to die. They're choosing who dies. The next countdown begins. This time, a pregnant woman studies the floor instead of panicking. She notices every glowing pointer eventually settles on someone. It's a vote. The person with the most votes dies. To prove it, everyone clenches their fists at the same time. The woman receiving the most pointers is executed instantly. Desperate to outsmart the machine, they all vote for a corpse instead. The system ignores it. A living person dies anyway. Next, they refuse to vote altogether. For one hopeful moment, every pointer disappears. Then every single light suddenly activates by itself. The machine chooses another victim. There is no escaping the game. A young man in a blue hoodie finally says what everyone else is too afraid to admit. We're thinking too emotionally. If people have to die, we should choose the ones with the least time left. The room falls silent. His eyes drift toward the oldest man in the circle. Instant outrage erupts. Some refuse to even discuss it. Others quietly realize he's thinking exactly what they were. The countdown reaches 0. The old man begs for mercy. The lightning answers instead. One flash. He's gone. The horror should have stopped everyone. Instead, it makes the next decision easier. Round after round, more elderly survivors are quietly voted out as fear replaces compassion. Every execution becomes slightly easier than the last. As the bodies disappear, the survivors desperately compare memories. One man remembers sitting in traffic before a bright light lifted him into the sky. Another remembers waking inside a massive crimson chamber packed with unconscious people. The soldier immediately rejects the idea that this is some secret military experiment. Someone else whispers the only explanation left. Aliens. An elderly man suddenly insists he's actually seen them. Their voices, their faces, their bodies. Nobody believes him. Most assume he's simply saying anything to stay alive. The timer reaches 0. The room decides otherwise. Another flash. Another body. As the panic settles, a woman wearing a hat reluctantly admits she's 52 years old and recently survived cancer. The man in the blue hoodie barely hesitates. Then you should be next. A doctor immediately snaps back. She fought to stay alive. You're treating human beings like numbers. Blue hoodie doubles down. If we don't make rules, everyone dies. But that's exactly the problem. Today the cutoff is 50. Tomorrow it'll be 40. Then 30. The room suddenly realizes his logic has no finish line. The countdown begins. For the first time, the glowing pointers swing toward him. Blue hoodie looks around in disbelief. The system follows the vote. A bolt crashes through his chest. Just like that, the man who convinced everyone to start sacrificing strangers becomes the next sacrifice himself. With the room's first self-appointed leader gone, nobody rushes to replace him. The survivors finally understand the real danger. It isn't the machine. It's whoever convinces everyone else where to point. The cancer survivor pleads with the group to stop acting like executioners and start figuring out why they're here. A woman begins telling everyone how she ended up in the circle. The countdown reaches 0. She disappears in a flash before finishing her first sentence. The message couldn't be clearer. The less people know about you, the longer you might live. Across the circle, one man suddenly points to the woman opposite him. My wife. His voice cracks as he begs everyone to spare her. Another survivor quietly admits he recognizes the doctor, but refuses to explain how. The room falls silent, waiting to see if personal connections actually matter. The machine answers. Someone completely unrelated dies. Love doesn't matter. Friendship doesn't matter. Everyone is still just another vote. The group turns toward a frightened Hispanic man who doesn't understand English. A bilingual woman translates for him. He has 3 daughters waiting for him in Mexico. For a brief moment, sympathy replaces suspicion. Then a businessman in a red tie drags immigration into the conversation, arguing that an undocumented immigrant shouldn't be prioritized over everyone else. A man in a flannel shirt immediately fires back. We're standing inside an alien death trap. You really think they care about passports? The argument spirals until the translator reluctantly confirms the man entered the country illegally. The countdown ends. The room braces for his execution. Instead, a teenage girl is struck dead. The machine isn't rewarding prejudice. It's exposing it. Moments later, a police officer recognizes another man across the circle. He's been arrested before. Domestic violence. The accused doesn't even deny it. He smirks, claims his girlfriend deserved it. Several glowing pointers immediately swing toward him. This time, nobody argues. The lightning erases him. The room grows even quieter. Maybe this isn't random. Maybe they're supposed to judge each other. One woman cautiously suggests exactly that. What if this is a test? What if we're supposed to decide who deserves to live? Another survivor laughs bitterly. Or maybe we're just entertainment. The debate gains momentum. Then the machine interrupts it by killing a Muslim woman. An African-American man studies the shrinking circle. Has anyone else noticed who's dying? An uncomfortable silence follows. Some insist they're being fair. Others point out that fear has a way of exposing people's hidden biases. Before the argument can explode, the police officer launches into an openly racist rant. Nobody has to convince the room anymore. The next vote silences him forever. The soldier begs everyone to stop turning on each other. But it's already too late. Every new round reveals another crack in the group. Desperate to beat the system, they try something different. Everyone votes for themselves. Nothing changes. The machine rejects the idea and kills someone anyway. Next, they attempt a chain vote, each person targeting the survivor beside them so nobody is singled out. One terrified participant breaks the pattern. Another body falls. On the second attempt, the pregnant woman gently helps a frightened teenager understand what to do. For the first time, the vote ends in a perfect tie. The machine pauses. The room holds its breath. A second countdown appears. A runoff. The tie is broken. The man dies. Afterward, a quiet survivor standing near the back finally speaks. He admits he intentionally changed his vote. Not out of panic, because he caught the dead man secretly trying to eliminate the pregnant woman. The room turns toward her. She isn't just another contestant anymore. She's carrying 2 lives. Someone quietly points toward the teenager. So is he. The realization spreads like wildfire. Eventually, the game will force everyone to choose between the child and the unborn baby. One blonde man, who has barely spoken since the nightmare began, watches the argument without showing any emotion. Unlike everyone else, he never seems surprised by the outcome. He simply studies people, counts votes, remembers everything. Almost nobody notices him. Yet, another survivor suddenly voices the thought everyone has been avoiding. If we kill the kid and the pregnant woman now, everyone else's chances improve. The room erupts. The man in flannel refuses. If anyone deserves another chance, it's them. The cancer survivor agrees. The baby counts too. The next vote proves just how divided everyone has become. The teenager ties with an elderly woman. The room chooses to save the child. The older woman dies. A man wearing thick glasses immediately starts interrogating the teenager. What do you contribute? What have you done with your life? The questions become more aggressive. The next vote creates another tie. This time, between the teenager and the pregnant woman. Someone suddenly shouts, "Kill them both," before anyone can react. Lightning crashes down. The man who yelled is dead. Even the machine has rules. Desperate to end the nightmare, a teenage boy quietly volunteers to die. I don't want to become this. The room goes silent. Flannel refuses to let him sacrifice himself. But before the teenager can step away from his circle, an elderly gentleman smiles sadly. I've had my life. When the countdown starts, he calmly steps forward. One flash later, he's gone. His sacrifice buys everyone one more round. The businessman immediately demands another volunteer. Nobody moves. Flannel makes one last desperate suggestion. What if every adult volunteers? Except the pregnant woman? The room hesitates. The teenager closes his eyes. The countdown reaches 0. He keeps his promise. He steps off his circle. The lightning follows. Now every eye turns toward the soldier. Surely he'll be the next to volunteer. Instead, he quietly shakes his head. I've already given everything to my country. I just want to live long enough to meet my child. Nobody argues. Then a grieving mother steps forward. She says she lost her son, and she's ready to see him again. A deacon gently takes her hand, promising they'll meet again. She smiles through her tears, steps off her circle, and disappears in a burst of light. The room barely has time to grieve before a man in a black suit turns on the deacon. He mocks his faith, mocks heaven, mocks anyone still clinging to hope. The only God in this room is the thing pulling the trigger. The argument ends exactly the way every argument does, with another flash. This time, the loudest voice is the one that disappears. The survivors stop debating beliefs. Now they debate value. A man wearing thick glasses proposes a new rule. Parents first. People with children deserve priority. The supposed husband immediately claims he has a daughter waiting for him. Others nod. The rule seems reasonable, until someone asks the obvious question. What about the people who never had kids? No one answers. The next countdown reaches 0. Another young woman dies. Then a quiet woman reveals she's gay. The businessman in the red tie explodes in disgust, insisting her life matters less. For the first time, the room doesn't even bother arguing. Nearly every glowing pointer swings toward him. Seconds later, he's gone. The shrinking circle falls silent again. Someone asks the question nobody wanted to think about. What happens when only 2 people are left? One survivor offers a chilling theory. If one person refuses to vote, the other survives. The idea hangs over every remaining round. The blonde man finally begins speaking more often. Not loudly, not emotionally, just enough to steer conversations in the direction he wants. Almost every suggestion benefits him. Almost nobody notices. Glasses becomes obsessed with measuring everyone's worth. Jobs, education, income, productivity. He demands to know what the pregnant woman contributes to society. The translator snaps back immediately. She's carrying a child. That's enough. Glasses scoffs. Moments later, Hat Guy is executed before the argument can continue. Without missing a beat, Glasses proudly announces that he's a banker, a pillar of society. The arrogance turns stomachs. Then the translator dies. The room freezes. A quiet man standing near the back finally exposes what just happened. She wasn't killed because she translated. She was killed because she'd never vote against the children. Suddenly, everything changes. The survivors aren't just reacting anymore. They're planning several rounds ahead. The next vote forces a tie between the little girl and the immigrant father. He understands exactly what's happening. Slowly, he unclenches his fist. He refuses to vote. The machine interprets his silence as a sacrifice. He smiles sadly, thinking of his daughters. Then he's gone. The blonde strategist immediately starts building an alliance. The soldier, the fake husband, several frightened survivors. One by one, he quietly stacks the numbers. The next runoff unexpectedly places Glasses against the child. Nobody expected that. When the final vote comes, Glasses dies instead. The alliance immediately demands to know who betrayed them. The fake wife calmly claims she simply abstained. Nobody believes her. Flannel looks around the room, exhausted. We're all dead already. The only choice left is how we die. The blonde strategist wastes no time. He begins eliminating anyone who refuses to play his game. Flannel dies. The soldier proposes testing the fake husband's loyalty by targeting the woman he claims is his wife. At the last second, he betrays everyone to save her. His secret is exposed. They were never married. The lie they hoped would save them becomes the reason they're condemned. The fake husband dies first. The woman sobs, insisting the child waiting for her back home is real. Nobody knows whether to believe her anymore. The blonde strategist offers protection. She accepts. One round later, he sacrifices her without hesitation. Now only a handful remain. The deacon, the pregnant woman, the little girl, the silent old man, the quiet observer at the back, the soldier, and the blonde strategist. The blonde man proposes eliminating the silent elder next. The quiet observer appears to agree. But while everyone watches the old man, he quietly meets the pregnant woman's eyes. No words, no signals, just understanding. The countdown reaches 0. The blonde strategist smiles, certain he's won. Then lightning tears through him instead. For the first time, he looks genuinely surprised. The mastermind is dead. Only one obstacle remains. Together, the survivors vote out the silent old man. Now only 3 people remain: the quiet observer, the pregnant woman, the little girl. For the first time since the nightmare began, there's no shouting, no politics, no insults, only silence. Then the observer finally reveals what he believes this entire experiment was about. The aliens never cared who survived. They wanted to learn how humans decide whose life matters. They watched us sacrifice the old, the sick, the poor, the foreign, the guilty, the innocent. They've been measuring our values all along. He looks at the 2 girls. I can't choose. One of you has to. The little girl begins crying. Then, with heartbreaking calm, she chooses the unborn baby. She quietly volunteers to die. The observer promises she won't face it alone. The countdown reaches 0. At the very last second, he clenches his fist. His vote shifts. The pregnant woman dies. The little girl collapses beside her. The room doesn't open. Another countdown begins. The observer stares upward in horror. No, you said one survivor. He refuses to vote. The timer reaches 0. The floor lights reveal the final pairing: him and the unborn child. There isn't a second of hesitation. He casts his vote. The baby dies. A blinding light fills the room. He opens his eyes lying in an open field beneath an enormous alien ship. All around him, lone survivors from countless identical circles awaken across the grass. Each one escaped by making the same impossible choices. He survived, not because he was stronger, not because he was smarter, because every time compassion stood between him and survival, he chose himself. The aliens never wanted a champion. They wanted an answer. Humanity gave them one. What would you have done inside the circle? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable sci-fi and horror movie recaps.